Hi, this is Julie with Pettyjohn Quilting and Arts. I would like to invite you to join along with me today as I do some custom quilting on a baby quilt. This will be custom computerized quilting on ProStitcher Premium. To me, custom quilting is anything that's not edge to edge. Sometimes that means I'm doing free motion or rulers, and sometimes I'm using all computerized stitches, but we're doing different types of stitching within different areas. This is a customer quilt with minky fabric on the back. I'm using glide thread in German granite colorway with Quilter's Dream batting 80/20. The first customer request was to embroider the baby's name on the top and bottom border of the quilt. Then I was asked to quilt trucks and vehicles and some waves to look like road waves and go with the fabric that's kind of going up and down. And so the first thing I did was to measure the different areas that I had. The entire quilt is 39 inches in width. The top three main areas were 4.5 inches in length, and then the largest area, which is in the middle of the quilt, was 11 inches in length. Next, I go to my computer and open ProStitcher Premium software, and I open some designs that I know I want to work with. On each side of the name in the top and bottom border, I want 2 trucks that come free with Handy Quilter in the continuous line folder. So I bring those in. I don't need 4 of them. I like to save every element that I need, but only as few times as I need them. So I bring in these 2 trucks, and I know I have about 15 inches but on each side of the name that I can use. I need the undulating waves to fit exactly in that fabric, so I make an area box 39 by 4.5 and fit that there. Then there was an edge-to-edge design on Urban Elements that I purchased of trucks that I'm going to use for that larger area that is 11 inches in length. But I decide I would like to wait until I get over to the quilt and crop right there so that I can draw my area box right on the quilt and get my crop exact, because I'm going to have some closed lines. That's the real reason for that. What I mean by that is when I crop and I close my edges, it's going to create some straight lines. And so I need that area box to be absolutely precise so that when those lines stitch, they will stitch in the ditch and I won't have straight crop lines on the quilt that show. So I'll show you what I mean when I get over to the quilt. This is the way I like to get all of my elements together. Then I save each design on a flash drive and take it over to the long arms. So join me next at the Amara. Starting with the top border, I first want to look for the design that is on my flash drive, the truck group. I think I named it 2 trucks group, and there it is, truck group per side is what I named it. And so I bring that in, but then I need to make my area so that it will stitch exactly where I want it. On my tablet, the crosshairs, the orange crosshairs, where they come together, that is where my needle is. So I want to find the area, and I'm going to put my needle right there, and I know, I need the 2 trucks on the left side and on the right side. So right now I'm dealing with just the left side. And so I am placing my needle in the area where I want those 2 trucks to stitch out. I'm on my right handlebars where the diamond shape is. On my Amara, when I push that, that is making a mark every time to draw the area. So I basically moved my needle 4 times to kind of draw an imaginary rectangle, and every time I got to the corner I would push that diamond shape and that made a mark. So on my tablet is a rectangular area, and I move my machine over toward where the start where I see that the design is supposed to start stitching, and I start that. I pull up my bobbin and I hit resume. I did quilt, run, and then I think it was proceed actually. And now my machine is starting to stitch the trucks. I chose to do my trucks on the left first. So I wanted them to look right, but I didn't have to be so accurate that I made measurements. I could eyeball where I wanted them because I didn't have anything I had to match them up to. Now I'm doing the trucks on the right side, and I do want them to match with the left trucks. So if my left-sided trucks are about 1.5 inches away from the lettering, I want to start my right-sided trucks about 1.5 inches away from the lettering on the right side. I'm going to go up to the area tab, and I will clear that area because I don't want anything stitching over on the left side. And I then want to modify my design. I go to modify, rotate, and mirror the image. I'm doing this because I had the trucks look like they were driving toward the name on the left side, so I'm going to flip them around and drive toward the name on the right side. To draw my new area box, I go to the area tab, and I could select the 2-corner or the multi-corner, and I selected the multi-corner, which correlates with my diamond shape on my right handlebar. So every time I move my needle, and that moves the crosshairs on my computer, I will select that diamond shape, and that will put a new mark. Now that mark, if I move in the same direction, it will continue the line. If I move in a different direction, it forms the angle. So now I've made 3 angles on my rectangle on my computer. So you can see there, 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one isn't connected yet. So I connect it where I want. Now I have my rectangle drawn. I go look at the modify, and I always want to make sure where I'm aligning that design within my area. So I'm going to choose modify and align. You can tell it's chosen because It turns green when you choose it. And then I want to align it to the center horizontally and the center vertically. Well, that's already been chosen, as you can see, because if it is a different color, the green color, it was chosen. If it's not, then there won't be any color on it. Now I can look at this and see that the truck is a little bit to the right outside of the area, so I'm going to modify and reposition. And down here on my nudge, I've got it set at 2/100ths, and I'm going to just nudge it a little over to the left. Now these trucks aren't fitting just exactly in that area. That's okay because I'm not cropping it, but I'd rather it be a little more to the left than the right. On my next area box, I need to make certain that my laser light for my needle is right in the ditch, because I'm going to be cropping that edge-to-edge design, and the lines that are formed with the crop need to line up right in that ditch. I take my design and determine where I'm going to put it. I don't want it below the area line because there will be a lot of places not stitched. So I raise it up, and I'm going to go modify, crop, close my edges, and I want to crop it with the outside gone. It didn't take long to realize that the customer's request to put these cars over the other cars was not going to look good. Neither one would be able to be seen. It would look messy. So I stopped what I was doing and texted her and asked if I could put the vehicle design on the blue Minky and put the wave design here. So what she had requested was the opposite, and I wanted to switch them because I knew that on the plain Minky these vehicles would show real well, and she said yes, that would be just fine. I picked out the stitches, moved down to the Minky, set a new area, and as you can see, it is looking a lot better putting the design on this Minky. I could have stitched the waves on the vehicles first, but since I already had the design open, I chose to move down to the Minky and do that part first. I opened the saved wave design, and next I need to make a new area. Usually I make my area like this. I want my needle alignment to be a little bit inside of the stitch because I don't like the stitching to go up into the ditch. The only time I do that is like I did when we did the vehicle design, and I had an edge-to-edge design that I was going to need to crop, and I knew that I would have some closed lines and wanted them right in the stitch in the ditch area. But most of the time I do it just like this because I'm thinking, where do I want the stitch to come? How high, how low, and that kind of thing. After aligning the design within the area, it's time to stitch it out on the quilt. So I go to ProStitcher, Quilt, and Run. Get my bobbin up, continue the quilting, and as it starts onto the wave, when it gets a little bit away from my threads, then I go ahead and at that time cut the thread. And as you know, when it gets to the end, it will pause and give me the prompt to cut my thread. So I'll need to pull the machine a little away, give me a little bit of thread to work with, come back over to the end, needle down, needle up, trim the thread. Then I move the machine back over to the left just so it doesn't have to work real slowly to move back over where it needs to. And I have what the machine calls a long jump pause. And when it gets back over there, I'll click resume and we'll start on the second row and do that until the whole area is finished stitching. Before I advance my quilt on the frame, I want to go up to the name. The customer requested I do a wave line above and below the name. So I need to decide how I'm going to accomplish that. I choose to use a portion of one of these waves because I want it to match exactly rather than do a free motion. Where my needle is, remember I said that's where the crosshairs are on my tablet. That's called the starting point. So I want to reposition that right where I have my needle, where I want it to start. So I go to Modify and Reposition. And then over in the right-hand column, I have some options there, and I'm going to choose Start Point. That will make the design move exactly to where my needle is sitting right now. So let's do that. I want to select Start Point, and you see the design move on my screen to where my orange lines are crossing. And that corresponds with where my needle sits. It's always a good idea to double check this. So I want to move my machine along where I can see the design will be. I watch my tablet and watch my quilt, kind of looking up, looking down, and I move the machine along where that wave is going to be. I want to make sure it's not going to be stitching down into that letter D. It's always a good idea to double check something like this. Then I'll be ready to stitch it out and do the same on the bottom. To make certain stitching stops where I want it to, I set a new stop point. Let me tell you how I did that. I went to ProStitcher and Quilt and New Start and End. Now over at the side there are a number of ways I can set an end point, but I want to use the auto feature. And to do that, I have to have my needle sitting exactly where I want that stop to be. So I move my crosshairs over to where I want that to be, and then I select the auto button, and I always think of it as auto on, auto off, so that means you will tap it one time and it will turn green, and then one more time to take the green off, and then stitch. I advanced the quilt and we are at the middle section of our quilt. If you remember, this section is longer than the other sections of the quilt. They were 4.5 inches. This middle section is 11 inches. I've already made my area box. On my tablet, we can see that the wave design is not large enough for this 11-inch section. So I need more waves. First though, I can tell the top wave is right on the line of where I wanted everything to start. So I'm going to go to Modify and Reposition and nudge that design down just a little bit before I add more waves. Now, you might think that we could add one wave at a time. Well, we've already baselined and saved this design. So it's saved as one design of 4 waves. When I go to repeat and I repeat it vertically, you can see then it gave me 4 more. So I now have 8, and that's not enough. If I do it again, I'm going to have 12. But that's what I'm going to have to do unless I want to start all over with just one wave. So I am again going to go to repeat, my repeat tab over at the side. I'm going to have 3 sets. Now I could crop that, but then I'm going to have that line in, and I need to make sure it's in the stitch in the ditch area. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to ProStitcher, New Start and End. I go over at the side, and the right side is the stop. So I'm going to use that arrow to jump up 1 and then jump up 1 again. And then I think I might need to jump up 1 again. Yes. So at every one of those little pause stops, the major stop, I can just push the arrow and go up 1. Now I'm going to go to Modify Crop, and I can crop between the start and end buttons. That's a nice feature to have. So I'm going to push Start and End, and then there I am, left with a design that's going to work pretty well. I probably need to reposition it. Maybe I can reposition and nudge it, or I can align it and make certain it's in the center. So I want to go over to Align, Modify Align, and I'm going to center that vertically. That should be perfect. And I think it looks fantastic. Now I have one more lesson that I would like to give here, and that is about getting a stitch right in the stitch in the ditch line. The black areas, the customer wanted just to leave with nothing in them, and I agree that's the thing to do. But to make them really pop, I needed to go in the stitch in the ditch above and below them. Now I could use a ruler and do that, but what I chose to do with each one of those is to use my mark and record feature on the ProStitcher Premium. Let me go through with you what I'm going to do to make that work on this one particular line that I'll show you. I'm going to again go up to my tablet, and I'm going to choose File, and I'm going to clear all that I have there, and then I'm going to ProStitcher, and do you see the record button? I'm going to push record. There are a couple of features that can be used on this, but I'll show you the option we're using today. The mark, once again, that's the diamond shape that I have over on my right handlebar. Now, record is another lesson. Right now, we're talking about how to use mark. Remembering that the needle corresponds with where the cross sections are on my tablet, I'm going to line up the needle, push my diamond. I'll hear a little ding. Every time I stop and push that, my machine will make a little ding sound. And I want to go through making several marks. Please don't ever make one mark on the left side and one mark on the right side, because our quilts are never perfectly straight. Wherever we put a mark, we will get a line from that mark to the next one. And only having 2 marks is just not enough. When we look at our tablet, we can see the line that is formed by connecting from mark to mark to mark that we made. It is not perfectly straight. It is, however, right in the seam ditch, and that's where we want it. So now we're ready to stitch this line. It's a great way to not have to change your foot and put on a sure foot and get a ruler out and get the ruler base, and just to get one line when you've been using the other foot all along. So this will form the line, and then you set it to stitch, and it's a great tool to know. This is a photograph of the completed quilt. I hope this video has helped someone to see how easily you can customize your quilts by using ProStitcher Premium. Please give me a like on this video and subscribe. I really need more subscribers and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.